Yo, it's Karkat. Today we're going to be doing something very different. I'm getting back into game dev and I'm putting it on the channel to keep me accountable and to share more things I love with you guys. Let me tell you about the game I want to make. If you've watched other videos on the channel, you know I love solo leveling. One of the reasons I love it so much is because ever since I was a kid, way back in the days of Adventure Quest Worlds, I've always loved summoner types in video games. I don't know what it is, but something about summoning shit in a game just does something for me. I'm also a sucker for leveling up, gearing up, number goes up, you get the idea. So my thought is, let me try to distill the narrative loop that makes solo leveling so addicting into a game, without infringing on copyright. Here's the idea. A hack and slash roguelike where you play as a dual dagger wielding necromancer and clear dungeons that progressively get harder. And every time you kill an enemy type, you can cast a spell that has a percentage chance of adding it to your summonable army. If you've seen the show, just think, what if the show was a video game? The goal for this series then is to see if I can truly take a game from start to finish, something I've never done before despite spending hundreds of hours on previous projects, and I'm going to be sharing as much of it as possible. I'm going to try to make it educational for people interested in game dev, though I'll probably hit many roadblocks and I'm praying someone watching can help me, and ideally somewhat entertaining too. All that's left to do is hop in Unreal and see what's what. We're starting with the combat variant of the third-person template, new in Unreal 5.6. It gives you a dude to play as who can punch and kick and deal damage to some basic AI that will attack you, and it's the perfect starting point. First, we want to get our bearings inside the core blueprints, starting with the player character. They have a basic setup that includes movement, but no jumping or sprinting, attacking with some input buffer, logic for handling dealing damage, deaths, stuff like that. To deal damage, an anim notify is being triggered during the attack animations that fires a multi-sphere trace, so we can set up our own animations easily enough that use the same code. First, let's quickly add sprinting and walking for the hell of it, then get knee-deep in animation blueprints so we can start running around with dual daggers. After that headache is done, we just have to attach the sword static meshes that we got from the same anim pack, and bada bing bada boom, we have some slightly better movement. Finally, we just swap out the punch animations for sword swinging animations, and we've got ourselves the absolute bare bones of combat. Next, I wanted to tweak how melee attack inputs are handled. Something simpler than the basic input buffering setup so my dumb caveman brain can understand it. What I opted for now is separating animations by which direction the sword is generally being swung in, and then toggling between the two directions to give it a natural flow. Then I added my own anim notify so you can cancel the end of the animation with your next attack, added a dash attack, and now we're slowly getting somewhere. There's still, of course, tons of work to be done before it feels even remotely good, but day one, week one, and even month one prototyping is all about moving fast and just setting up the framework for everything. Before adding hit detection, I noticed the root motion of the animation was pushing around our enemy actors pretty aggressively. Not sure what the best solution is, but we can put a band-aid on it for now by adjusting collision settings of our character when attack animations are played, and putting them back when we're done. Now we just have to add the anim notifies that call the sphere trace, and voila, dual dagger combat. Now, maybe a bit early for this, but since it's going to be the main gimmick of the game, let's prototype our summon ability. The idea is just like solo leveling. When you kill an enemy, you get a chance to summon them to fight for you. Game dev is all about breaking larger tasks into smaller tasks, and this is the perfect time to demonstrate that. First, when we kill an enemy, spawn in a cube. We'll have to familiarize ourselves with the death logic of the enemy actor, create a new actor, and give it a cube mesh. Then, whenever an enemy dies, call the spawn actor from class node to spawn in our cube. Next, we give it a box collision to implement interaction. We'll have to go to our key bindings and create an interact button, implement the interact button, and then when we interact with the cube, spawn in an actor and destroy the cube. Now all we have to do is set the actor that died to the actor we want to spawn in by exposing the variable on spawn. Then boom, a new actor spawns in when we interact with the cube. But it's still only targeting me, so next we have to investigate how target acquisition works. It looks like every tick, the AI state tree sets variables like the target actor and the distance to the target. I'm going to want to change the target based on whether or not the enemy is hostile, and if the enemy is on our team, it's going to have to pick a target out of all the hostile enemies currently alive. That's a lot to do on tick, so let's move all that logic to the enemy actor blueprint and write a function that acquires the enemy instead. Then, if the enemy isn't hostile, we can set a timer to run the function every few seconds instead of on tick, so it'll update based on which enemy is closest, and then if it's hostile, it'll just be set to the player, and not run again because it doesn't have to. Then we just hook up the new current target variable to the target in the state tree, and set enemies that get resurrected to not hostile. And now the summoned enemy should... wait, it's still just attacking me? It turns out that putting the update target function on begin play makes it run before our resurrection cube is able to set the enemy to not hostile. So the function never branches into the non-hostile code. That's an easy fix. We can just call the function from the cube after setting the enemy to non-hostile. And now our summoned unit correctly targets the enemy actors. Two more things left to do. The summoned unit can't actually damage the enemies because the current code prevents friendly fire by only damaging actors with the player tag. Simple fix, we branch the code based on if the actor is hostile and add an enemy tag to the actor. If the actor is hostile, damage the player. If not, damage other enemies. Lastly, we have to go back and add in the ability for hostile enemies to target our summoned units, because as of now, they'll only ever target the player. We also have to make sure we can't damage summoned units, which we can do by checking if the actor is hostile before applying damage. Once we've done those things, we should have fully functioning summonable units after every kill. Okay, they're not damaging each other at all. Turns out it's because I'm confusing myself with the enemy tag being on both summons and enemies. So let's just use a summon tag that we add when we resurrect units, and that should do it. Fully functioning summonable units after every kill. Not bad for 5 minutes. I think the last thing we'll do for today is try to dial in the feel of the combat and add a couple more things to that effect. First, attacking multiple times still feels a bit unresponsive, so let's tighten up the timing on the anim notifies that allow us to fire off another attack. This should make swinging the daggers feel a bit snappier and more agile, which is definitely what we're going for. Next, I want to add dodging and blocking. Key here is animation canceling. I think a big part of making combat not feel clunky is allowing players to cancel animations, preventing that feeling of being locked into an action. It sacrifices the timing-related skill expression that's super important for games like Dark Souls, but since this isn't that kind of game, it's totally fine. So we set up our dodge input and have our animations. We need the game to know what direction the player wants to dodge, even if they're in the middle of swinging their weapon. For that, we can create booleans that represent the player's desired direction. So for example, if you're holding down W and A while attacking, the game will keep track of this, and if you dodge, you'll dodge forward and to the left. I don't have a super elegant way of coding this, so we're gonna make some super ugly looking function that works, but is super ugly. Then we have to make sure we toggle our is attacking boolean off so we're able to attack again after dodging. And here's what we have now. Next is blocking. I'm pulling from Chrono Odyssey here, where the player is able to animation cancel their attack with block, so we'll take a similar approach to dodging when it comes to the code. The most annoying part will be just setting up the animation. We'll do a layered blend per bone, using a single blocking animation and applying it to the upper body, so we can walk in any direction while still blocking. Pretty much everything we've added looks a bit jank, but it's functional, and that's the goal for today. And that feels like a pretty good stopping point for our first working session together. Let me know if you like this and want to see more of it, and especially if you have any advice, because I'm really serious about wanting to be at least an indie game dev, if not pursuing it as a career down the line, and I'd love to bring you guys with me. But more than anything right now, I just want to finish a small game. My YouTube feed is currently inundated with, I made an indie game and it made millions. I made an indie game and it changed my life. And I quit my job and started an indie game studio. And like probably a lot of people, I find it a mix of inspiring and discouraging when I reflect on what I've accomplished up to this point. So this video marks the start of what will hopefully be something worthwhile. Anyway, catch you in the next one. Peace.